What if everything you've been losing, respect, opportunities, power, is not because you lack skill, but because you talk too much and say too little of value? What if silence is the weapon you've been ignoring, the one thing separating you from control, dominance, and quiet authority? You think speaking proves intelligence, but the truth is, uncontrolled speech exposes weakness faster than failure ever could. Marcus Aurelius understood something most people ignore. Power is not in reacting, it is in restraint. Before we go deeper, subscribe to this channel because what you're about to hear will change how you speak, how you think, and how people perceive you forever. You think speaking proves intelligence, but the truth is, uncontrolled speech exposes weakness faster than failure ever could. Marcus Aurelius understood something most people ignore. Power is not in reacting, it is in restraint. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most respected because noise is easy, but control is rare. You don't lose power when you stay silent, you lose power when you reveal too much too soon to the wrong people. Most people speak to impress, but end up exposing insecurity hidden beneath their words. Silence forces others to reveal themselves, while you remain unreadable, calm, and in control. When you talk less, people listen more, and when people listen more, your words carry weight instead of noise. But you've been trained to fill silence, to avoid discomfort, to prove your worth with unnecessary explanations. That's your first mistake. Silence is uncomfortable only for those who lack control over their thoughts. When you master silence, you master perception, and perception shapes reality. People start projecting confidence onto you, even when you say nothing at all, because calm presence speaks louder than desperate words ever could. You don't need to win every conversation, you need to control the direction of it. And control begins when you stop reacting emotionally to every trigger thrown at you. Most people are predictable, they speak when provoked, they argue when challenged, they explain when doubted. You must become unpredictable. Silence in the face of provocation is not weakness, it is calculated dominance. When someone tries to pull you into chaos, your silence becomes your shield and your weapon. The more they push, the more your calm exposes their lack of control. This is where power shifts. Not when you speak louder, but when you choose not to speak at all. Because silence creates tension, and tension makes people uncomfortable. And uncomfortable people reveal their true intentions. You begin to see who talks out of ego, who talks out of fear, and who talks without thinking. While you observe, analyze, and stay in control. This is step 1. Learn to observe more than you express. Your words should be deliberate, not impulsive. Your responses should be measured, not emotional. And your silence should be intentional, not accidental. Because when you control your mouth, you begin to control your life. You begin to notice most conversations are traps disguised as connection. And every careless word quietly gives away leverage you may never recover. Epictetus taught we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, yet most people reverse it, speaking without discipline and reacting without awareness. You don't need to respond to everything, because not every statement deserves your energy, your attention, or your voice. The moment you react instantly, you lose control, but the moment you pause, you regain control of yourself. That pause is where discipline is built, and that pause is where real power begins to grow. Most people fear silence because they think it makes them look weak, but it actually exposes the impatience of others. And impatience is weakness, because the one who cannot wait reveals their lack of control. The one who can wait without reacting holds the advantage in any situation. The one who can listen without interrupting sees more than others ever will. You begin to notice tone, intention, insecurity, and hidden motives behind careless words. While others are busy talking, you are quietly understanding everything they reveal. This is how you read people without them realizing they are being read. Seneca warned that unnecessary words drain the mind and weaken clarity. You don't become wiser by speaking more. You become wiser by speaking with precision. There is a difference between honesty and unnecessary exposure. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts. Not everyone needs to know your plans. Not everyone should hear your opinions. Because the moment you reveal too much, you lose control over how it is used. And people will always use your words based on their intentions, not yours. This is why restraint is silence with purpose, not silence without meaning. Every word you speak should strengthen your position or protect your peace. If it does neither, then it is unnecessary. And unnecessary words create unnecessary problems. Most people don't speak with logic, they speak from emotion. And emotion, when uncontrolled, is predictable. When someone insults you, they expect a reaction. When someone challenges you, they expect defense. When someone provokes you, they expect escalation. But when you give silence, you break their expectations. And when expectations break, control shifts. You are no longer playing their game, you are creating your own. Marcus Aurelius understood that people act from ego, ignorance, and selfishness. When you accept that, reacting becomes unnecessary. Because why react to behavior you already expect? Why waste energy on what is predictable? Most words are reflections of the speaker, not you. And once you understand that, emotional reactions begin to fade. Silence becomes easier when you stop taking things personally, because you stop giving others control over your emotions. People are drawn to what they cannot fully understand. When you speak too much, you become predictable. When you explain too much, you become ordinary. But when you leave space, you become intriguing. People begin to pay attention without you asking for it. Because what is rare is respected. And silence is rare in a noisy world. You don't need to prove your intelligence in every conversation. You don't need to correct everyone. You don't need to win every argument. Sometimes the strongest move is to say nothing and walk away. Walking away is not losing. It is choosing peace over conflict. Silence is not about never speaking. It is about timing. A well-timed sentence carries more weight than many careless words. When you wait, you gather information. When you listen, you understand context. When you speak, your words land with precision. This is how influence is built, through control, not volume. Your words are within your control. Your reactions are within your control. Your silence is within your control. Everything else is noise. But real discipline begins in private, because your thoughts shape your words. If your mind is chaotic, your speech will reflect it. You must learn to sit in silence without distraction. You must become comfortable with your own thoughts, because those who fear silence seek validation through words, and that leads to oversharing and unnecessary talking. But when you are grounded, you no longer need to fill silence. You no longer need to prove yourself. You simply exist with control. Silence protects you in ways words never can. The less you say, the less can be used against you. People regret what they say more than what they don't say. Words can be twisted, remembered, and used. But silence remains untouched and safe. This is why powerful people speak carefully, because they understand the cost of careless speech. When you enter a room and speak immediately, you blend into noise. But when you observe first, you stand out. When you speak last, your words carry weight. Your presence becomes stronger without effort, because anticipation creates influence. You don't demand attention, you earn it through control. The goal is not silence or speech alone, but balance. To know when to speak and when to stay silent. To know when to walk away and when to stand firm. This is control and this is power. True strength is quiet, not loud, because loudness seeks attention. But quiet confidence commands it. And once you understand this, you begin to move differently. You speak less, think more, and observe everything. And without demanding respect, your silence earns it. It begins to hurt when you realize how many times your own words quietly sabotaged you before you ever had a chance to win. You start remembering moments you spoke too soon, trusted too fast, explained too much, and felt respect slowly disappear without understanding why. It wasn't bad luck, and it wasn't coincidence, it was exposure, the kind you created yourself without even noticing. Marcus Aurelius understood that regret follows unexamined actions, and nothing is more unexamined than impulsive speech. Every careless word becomes a small leak in your authority, something subtle at first, almost invisible but damaging over time. At the beginning it feels harmless, just conversation, just expression, just being open, but slowly it reshapes how people see you. And perception, once changed, is difficult to restore, no matter how much you try to correct it later. You begin to understand that people are not always listening to understand you, they are listening to use what you say. That realization stings because it forces you to question every conversation you once believed was genuine. People collect information more than they connect emotionally, storing details you casually reveal without hesitation. They notice your patterns, your weaknesses, your insecurities, even when you think you are just speaking freely. And they wait, sometimes unconsciously, for the right moment when those details become useful. Not always out of malice, but out of human nature, because people act in ways that serve their own interests. So when you speak without awareness, you are not just expressing yourself, you are equipping others with pieces of you. And most people never realize they are doing this until it is too late to take those words back. Discipline begins to feel uncomfortable when you become aware of this, because now you must fight your own instincts. You sit in conversations where your mind urges you to respond, to correct, to defend, to explain everything. But this time, you don't move, you hold yourself still, even when the pressure begins to build inside you. That pressure is unfamiliar, almost unbearable, because you are breaking a habit that once felt natural. Your chest tightens, your thoughts race, your ego pushes you to speak, but you choose silence instead. And in that moment, something new begins to form, something stronger than impulse, something rooted in control. Epictetus taught that no man is free if he is not master of himself. If your tongue controls you, then you are not in control, no matter how confident you appear on the surface. Freedom is not the ability to say anything you want, it is the discipline to choose not to. You begin to see attention differently, not as something to chase, but as something to protect. Attention becomes a currency, and every unnecessary word becomes a careless expense. When you speak too often, your words lose value, becoming predictable, becoming background noise. And once you become predictable, people stop paying attention, even if you believe you are saying something important. But when you speak less, when your words are measured, something shifts in the atmosphere around you. People begin to listen more closely, leaning in, waiting, trying to understand what you will say next. Because what is rare naturally becomes valuable, and controlled speech creates that rarity. Your voice gains weight, not because it is louder, but because it is intentional. You are no longer trying to be heard, you become someone people try to understand. And that shift changes everything about how you move through conversations and environments. You stop chasing validation through words, because you no longer need constant acknowledgement. You stop proving your worth through explanations, because your presence begins to speak for you. You stop filling silence out of discomfort, because silence becomes something you can control. And that calm begins to unsettle others, because most people rely on noise to feel secure. Your silence exposes what they try to hide, their impatience, their insecurity, their need for validation. You begin to realize that not every misunderstanding needs correction. The urge to clarify yourself becomes weaker as your discipline grows stronger. Because sometimes, silence reveals more than explanation ever could. People who are meant to understand you will do so without constant clarification. And those who misunderstand you will eventually remove themselves without you forcing it. That is not a loss. It is clarity removing confusion from your life. Seneca warned against wasting energy on opinions that do not matter. And most opinions about you do not matter as much as you think they do. So fighting to control every perception becomes unnecessary and exhausting. You begin to detach emotionally, not by becoming cold, but by becoming controlled. When someone disrespects you, your instinct still pushes you to react immediately. Your pride demands a response, your ego demands defense, your mind demands correction. But control is choosing to pause instead of reacting instantly, because instant reactions are emotional, and emotional reactions are predictable. And predictable behavior makes you easy to manipulate without you even noticing it. But when you pause, when you hold your silence, you interrupt that pattern completely. You remove yourself from their expectations and create a different outcome. Now you are no longer reacting to others, you are responding only when necessary. And that difference gives you control over yourself and the situation. Silence stops feeling empty and begins to feel powerful, because it sharpens your awareness. You start noticing body language, small gestures, subtle hesitation in people's responses. You notice contradictions between what people say and what they actually mean. You begin to see the gaps, and inside those gaps lies truth. Truth most people never see because they are too busy talking to notice anything. Marcus Aurelius practiced observing without judgment, because clarity comes when emotion is removed, and silence helps remove that emotion from the moment. You begin to enter conversations without needing to dominate or control them. You listen more than you speak, and when you speak, it is intentional. You respond instead of reacting, and that subtle shift becomes noticeable to others. They may not understand it fully, but they feel it immediately. Your presence becomes heavier, not aggressive, but grounded and controlled. Your silence becomes louder than noise, because it carries intention behind it. And when you finally speak, your words land exactly where they need to. This is influence without force, control without effort, power without noise. Then comes the hardest truth you must accept. The belief that being heard equals being valued is false. You were conditioned to believe that speaking more makes you more important. But respect is not built on how much you speak, it is built on how well you control yourself. And control is built through discipline, repeated daily, in small unnoticed moments. Discipline shows itself in your restraint, in your pauses, in your silence. It shows in what you choose not to say just as much as what you say. Epictetus made it clear that external validation is unstable. If your identity depends on being heard, you will constantly chase attention. You will speak more than necessary, reveal more than needed, and lose control without realizing it. But when your identity is built on control, something changes internally. You no longer need noise to feel significant, because your value is not external anymore. You become steady, grounded, unaffected by the chaos around you. And in that state, silence becomes your advantage, not your weakness. You begin to think before speaking, observing before reacting, understanding before responding. You no longer rush to fill space because you are comfortable existing within it. You become selective with your words, intentional with your energy, precise with your responses. People begin to treat you differently, not because you demanded it, but because you changed how you present yourself. Your presence alone begins to communicate something words cannot easily explain. There is a sense of control, a sense of awareness, a sense of discipline that others recognize instantly. And that recognition creates respect without you asking for it. Because respect is not given to those who talk the most, it is given to those who control themselves the best. You begin to understand that silence is not the absence of expression. It is refined expression. It is choosing quality over quantity, intention over impulse, clarity over noise. It is knowing that not every thought deserves to become a word. It is knowing that not every moment requires your voice. It is knowing that your power is not in speaking constantly, but in speaking deliberately. And once this understanding becomes part of you, your entire way of interacting changes. You stop chasing conversations that drain you. You stop engaging in arguments that lead nowhere. You stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Instead, you conserve your energy, protect your peace, and choose your moments carefully. And those moments, when you finally decide to speak, carry more impact than endless talking ever could. Because now your words are not random, they are intentional. They are not emotional, they are controlled. They are not excessive, they are precise. And precision creates power in ways most people never experience. You begin to notice how people react differently when you speak less. They listen more carefully, they analyze your words more deeply, they assign meaning to your silence. Because silence creates curiosity, and curiosity creates attention. And attention, when earned through control, becomes influence. You are no longer competing for space in conversations. You are shaping the space without forcing it. And that is a level of control most people never reach, because they are too busy speaking to realize what silence can do. But you are no longer like them. You have seen the cost of careless words. You have felt the damage of unnecessary exposure. And you have chosen something different. You have chosen control over impulse. You have chosen awareness over reaction. You have chosen silence with purpose over noise without meaning. And in that choice, you gain something rare: clarity in how you think, power in how you respond, presence in how you exist, and a quiet authority that does not need to be announced to be felt. It becomes brutal when you finally see it clearly, that your own mouth has often been your biggest liability, not your environment, not your enemies, but you yourself. You talked yourself out of respect without realizing it, explained your way into being ignored, and revealed things that should have stayed guarded in silence. And now it sits with you, that quiet discomfort after conversations end, where your mind replays everything you said and wishes you had said less or nothing at all. Seneca warned that we suffer more from our own actions than external events, and uncontrolled speech is one of the fastest forms of self-sabotage. At this point, excuses begin to collapse because you can no longer say, "That's just how I am," without recognizing what it truly means. That is not personality, it is lack of discipline, and discipline is never something you are given, it is something you build through resistance and repetition. Every impulsive sentence becomes a choice toward weakness. Every unfiltered reaction reinforces a pattern that slowly shapes how others treat you. So the truth becomes unavoidable. You are not just speaking freely, you are training yourself to lose control. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it, because awareness removes comfort and replaces it with responsibility. You begin to feel pressure in real time during conversations, not after, but while they are happening, as your awareness sharpens. The urge rises again to interrupt, to defend, to prove, to correct, to fill silence with something that sounds intelligent. But now you see it forming before it escapes your mouth, and that awareness creates a gap between impulse and action. In that gap, you have a choice: to repeat the old pattern or begin something entirely different within yourself. Epictetus did not teach comfort, he taught control, and control is only proven in moments of internal pressure. That pressure is not your enemy, it is your training ground, the place where identity is either broken or rebuilt. Your ego begins to resist immediately, whispering that silence will make you look weak, invisible, or inferior. Tells you that if you do not respond instantly, you are losing the moment, losing status, losing ground. But ego is not intelligence, it is reaction without awareness, and reaction without awareness is always expensive. If you obey it repeatedly, you will keep losing respect in ways you do not immediately recognize. Because most losses in character are silent before they become visible in life. At this stage, cutting the habit cannot be gentle, it must be deliberate and conscious, not gradual avoidance but direct interruption. You begin catching yourself mid-sentence, stopping before unnecessary explanation escapes, choosing restraint over automatic expression. At first, it feels unnatural, almost like you are holding back something that demands release. But that discomfort is not failure, it is withdrawal from an older version of yourself that lived on impulse. Growth rarely feels smooth, it feels like friction between who you were and who you are becoming. And through that friction, discipline starts forming not as theory, but as lived behavior. Then comes a harder realization: most conversations do not actually require your contribution at all. That truth hits deeply because it breaks the illusion that your voice must always be present to have value. Sometimes silence contributes more than speech ever could, because silence creates space instead of noise. And in that space, people reveal themselves without pressure or interruption shaping their answers. They expose contradictions, intentions, and emotional patterns they did not plan to reveal. You simply observe without forcing clarity, because truth often appears when it is not chased. Marcus Aurelius practiced observing human behavior without interference, understanding that people reveal more when not challenged. You begin to see patterns in others that were invisible when you were constantly participating instead of observing. You notice who speaks to dominate, who speaks to impress, and who speaks to hide insecurity. Conversations start to feel less chaotic and more predictable, not because people changed, but because your awareness changed. Quiet observation reveals structure inside noise, and suddenly you are no longer reacting blindly. You are reading behavior in real time, without needing to dominate the conversation to understand it. Then comes restraint under pressure, the real test of discipline when ego is directly challenged. Someone disrespects you, provokes you, or tries to pull you into emotional reaction in front of others. Everything inside you wants to respond instantly, to restore pride, to correct perception, to regain control through words. But now you pause not because you are weak, but because you are aware of the cost of reaction. You stay still, and in that stillness, something shifts that most people never experience consciously. Because they expected noise, and instead they received silence. And silence in that moment is not emptiness. It is control refusing to be manipulated. Epictetus taught that if someone provokes you successfully, it is because you allowed yourself to be controlled externally. So you begin delaying response, not permanently avoiding speech, but separating emotion from expression. You wait until emotional charge fades, until words are no longer defensive but intentional. And when you finally respond, your words are sharper, calmer, and far more precise. This is not silence as avoidance. It is silence as refinement of thought. Your responses stop being emotional releases and start becoming calculated expressions of clarity. Then something deeper begins, isolation from noise, not physical isolation, but mental withdrawal from unnecessary engagement. You start noticing how loud the world really is, how much talking happens without meaning or direction. People speak constantly, not to communicate, but to fill discomfort, ego, and silence. And over time, it becomes exhausting to participate in noise that leads nowhere. So you begin selecting what deserves your attention and what does not. You stop engaging in conversations that drain awareness or scatter focus. Seneca emphasized guarding time and attention because what enters your mind shapes your entire life. And you begin to live that principle, filtering input as carefully as you once filtered output. Then you notice something unexpected. People start reacting to your silence more than your words. They question it, interpret it, sometimes even become uncomfortable with it. Because your silence forces them to sit with their own internal noise. And most people are not used to that kind of reflection without distraction. They may try to provoke you, pull you back into reaction, or demand verbal engagement. But you remain steady because you understand silence is not absence of thought. It is presence of control. At this stage, identity begins to shift quietly but permanently. You are no longer trying to win conversations because winning becomes irrelevant compared to awareness. You are now focused on controlling outcomes instead of proving dominance in dialogue. Winning is ego-based, but control is strategic and patient. And strategy requires observation, timing, and restraint working together. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the best revenge is not becoming like what harms you. So you stop entering chaos, stop mirroring emotional instability, and stop reacting on demand. Then comes acceptance, perhaps the most uncomfortable stage of all. You accept that not everyone will understand your silence or interpret it correctly. Some will think you are distant, uninterested, cold, or disconnected. And you allow them to think it because correcting every perception is another form of noise. Your goal is no longer external approval, it is internal control. And internal control does not require explanation to others. Everything begins to connect at this point. Speech becomes minimal, thought becomes deeper, observation becomes constant. You react slower, not because you cannot respond quickly, but because you refuse to respond unconsciously. Your presence begins to change without announcement or effort. People notice when you speak because you no longer waste words. They notice when you are silent because your silence now feels intentional. And that combination creates something most people cannot explain but instinctively respect. This is discipline becoming visible through behavior rather than declaration. Epictetus believed character is revealed through actions, not claims or intentions alone. And now your silence itself becomes evidence of internal control. The final realization arrives quietly but permanently. You were never powerless, only uncontrolled. Once you control your speech, you begin controlling your reactions. Once you control your reactions, you begin controlling your direction. Not everything becomes controlled, but enough becomes stable to change your entire trajectory. And it all begins from something deceptively simple, learning when not to speak, and choosing silence as discipline rather than weakness. And when you finally reach that point, you realize silence was never emptiness. It was always structure, hidden in plain sight, waiting for discipline to activate it. You stop seeing silence as something you endure and start recognizing it as something you command, something that reshapes every room you enter without saying a word. Because now, your restraint is no longer accidental, it is intentional, trained, and controlled, built through every moment you refuse to react. And that is where transformation becomes irreversible. You no longer chase validation through speech, because validation begins to lose meaning when your inner control becomes stronger than external opinion. You no longer rush to explain yourself, because you understand that people committed to misunderstanding you will never be satisfied with clarity. You no longer waste energy defending your image, because image built on reaction is fragile, but presence built on discipline is unshakable. Instead, you begin to move differently through every interaction, observing first, speaking second, responding only when necessary. And slowly, without announcement, your entire presence changes shape. People start listening when you speak, not because you are louder, but because you are rarer. They start watching when you are silent, because your silence no longer feels empty, it feels deliberate. And what people cannot predict, they begin to respect. Marcus Aurelius understood that power is not found in controlling others, but in controlling the self under pressure. And now you begin to understand the same truth through experience, not theory. You are no longer ruled by impulse, no longer dragged by emotion, no longer controlled by the need to respond instantly. You have created space between thought and action, and in that space you have reclaimed yourself. But this discipline does not make life quieter, it makes it clearer. You start seeing people more accurately, conversations more transparently, intentions more clearly than ever before. And with that clarity comes responsibility, because once you see more, you cannot unsee anything again. You realize most people are not in control of their speech, they are in reaction to their emotions. They speak to be heard, not to be understood. They argue to win, not to learn. They react to protect ego, not to seek truth. And you were once part of that cycle too, until silence interrupted it. Epictetus taught that freedom begins when external forces no longer control internal reactions. And speech, when uncontrolled, is one of the strongest external forces we voluntarily surrender to. So now you understand why restraint is not weakness, but the highest form of self-mastery. Because anyone can speak, but not everyone can choose not to. Anyone can react, but few can hold themselves long enough to respond with precision. And that difference separates noise from power. At this stage, you begin to notice something deeper happening around you. Your presence starts changing how people behave in your direction. Some become more respectful without knowing why. Some become more careful with their words around you. Some become curious about what you are thinking because you no longer give everything away. And curiosity is the beginning of influence. Not because you demanded attention, but because you stopped wasting it. You are no longer explaining yourself into understanding. You are allowing understanding to form naturally through observation and time. And that is where real authority lives, in what you don't say. You begin to realize that silence is not absence of communication. It is refined communication. It is the ability to say more by speaking less, and reveal more by revealing nothing unnecessary. It is discipline expressed through restraint, not performance. And once this becomes your identity, you cannot return to the old version of yourself. Because the old version relied on reaction, validation, and constant verbal expression to feel secure. But the new version is built on observation, timing, and internal control. One is dependent on the outside world. The other is governed from within. And only one of them is stable. So now the question becomes unavoidable, not whether you can speak, but whether you should. Not whether you can respond, but whether it is worth your energy. Not whether you can prove your point, but whether proving it even adds value to your life. And most of the time, the answer is silence. Because silence protects clarity, and clarity protects direction. And direction is more important than reaction. You stop trying to win conversations, because winning conversations without control is still loss in another form. You stop chasing the need to be understood by everyone, because universal understanding is impossible and unnecessary. You stop filling space just to avoid discomfort, because discomfort is often where awareness is built. And you begin to accept something powerful, that your value was never dependent on how much you speak. It was always dependent on how much control you have over yourself. And now that control is visible in everything you do. In your pauses, in your restraint, in your timing, in your silence. And that silence becomes your signature. Not empty, not passive, but controlled, intentional, unshakable. So if there is one truth to take from all of this, it is simple. Your mouth is either your greatest weakness or your greatest discipline. And the difference is not intelligence, talent, or circumstance. It is awareness followed by control. So the next time you feel the urge to speak too quickly, to react too fast, to explain too much, remember this moment. Remember what uncontrolled speech has already cost you in the past. And choose differently, because in that single decision, everything begins to change. If you understood this message, don't scroll past it like noise. Pause, reflect, and ask yourself how many times your own words have shaped outcomes against you. Then decide from today forward whether you will keep speaking unconsciously or begin speaking with control. If this message resonated with you, don't just move on and forget it. Take a moment and subscribe to this channel, because what you just heard is only the beginning of a deeper shift in awareness and discipline. Like this video if you understand the value of silence and control, and share it with someone who needs to stop letting their words work against them. And comment below what hit you the hardest, because your reflection might help someone else wake up to the same truth. Stay consistent, stay aware, and keep building control over yourself, because that is where real power begins.